Model 3 testing becomes controversial, and U.S. EV buyers may get a reprieve on the tax credit. This is Tesla Tidbits episode number 420 for July 6, 2018. We finished the week with Elon clapping back at slanted reporting yet again. Normally, this isn't something I'd really report on, but this one has to do with Model 3 and the way it's tested before being shipped to customers. Business Insider's Lynette Lopez keyed in an article titled, quote, Elon Musk ordered Tesla engineers to stop doing a critical brake test on Model 3s, end quote. The only issue here is that the article was completely disingenuous. Not only did the article have zero proof at all that Elon ordered the stoppage, but glossed over the fact that the lack of test was compensated for with other testing. The article tattles on itself in both of these areas, as firstly, Dave Arnold, the direct source quoted in the article from Tesla, does not confirm that Elon ordered the test removed, which again, doesn't matter. And secondly, the same rep tells Lopez that every car is driven before delivery to, quote, verify braking, torque, squeal, and rattle, end quote. Yet, the article clearly has a negative slant, with the implication that Tesla is sacrificing safety to push cars out. Lopez sources Ron Harbour, who writes the Harbour Report, which is described as a worldwide guide to manufacturing. Harbour is quoted as saying, quote, if you just abandon the test, you could potentially have a lot of quality issues with your customers. It's part of finishing the build of the car, end quote. He later added that he was unaware of any test that could accomplish the same testing as the brake and roll test that was referenced. Of course, you could always just drive the car, as Arnold notes. Fortunately, CNET's Roadshow picks up the slack here. As I noted on Twitter, this criticism sounded very much like the old guard saying that nobody else can get it right but us, and it would seem that the Roadshow agrees with me, saying in the article, quote, as the manufacturing process matures, so too does the testing process to validate the safety of each vehicle being produced. Oftentimes, this means altering tests or removing them altogether if they're found to be redundant, end quote. Later on, Roadshow explains why A, the brake and roll test exists, and B, why Tesla doesn't need it. Things that render the Business Insider article moot. Roadshow says, quote, for most manufacturers, the brake and roll test is used as a time saver to prevent having to physically drive vehicles on a test track, something that requires time, space, and personnel. Tesla is currently at a stage in Model 3 production where it feels that it physically needs to have each and every Model 3 that rolls off the line driven on an actual test track to make sure that power, torque, brakes, alignment, and of course squeaks and rattles are within spec. This makes the brake and roll test redundant, and a company in the midst of a production ramp like Tesla's can't afford redundancies, end quote. Further, Tesla then confirmed to Roadshow that the test track testing that replaced the brake and roll testing was identical. It's possible in the future that Tesla will no longer feel the need to drive every Model 3 on the test track, and at that point, this test may actually be reinstated. You know, when it's actually needed. We'll end the week with some actual positive news, courtesy of pluginsites.org. A topic of interest to hundreds of thousands out there is that of the U.S. federal tax credit for EVs. If you've been in a cave for the last year, that credit begins to phase out once a manufacturer sells 200,000 qualifying cars in the U.S., which Inside EVs now believes to be the case for Tesla. Finally, though, a congressman from Vermont said enough with this silliness. Representative Peter Welch introduced H.R. 6274, co-sponsored by Representatives Jared Huffman of California and Representative Jackie Rosen of Nevada. The bill would give everyone buying an EV the credit for the next 10 years, no longer counting cars for a quota. In addition, and maybe more importantly, it would allow the buyer to immediately receive the credit rather than waiting for their tax refund. Finally, it would also extend the credit for the installation of charging equipment. The congressman announced the bill at an EV charging station in Vermont, saying, quote, transportation is the single largest contributor to greenhouse emissions in the United States. It is urgent that we transition to cleaner, more efficient modes of transportation. My legislation will make electric vehicles and their charging stations more affordable while saving Vermonters money at the gas pump and reducing their environmental footprint. We are in a race for the winner of the technology for electric vehicles, and this credit is going to help spur that, end quote. The bill currently resides with the House Ways and Means Committee. A similar bill is also expected to be introduced into the Senate by Senator Jeff Merkley of Oregon. I will keep a close eye on this for everyone, though sadly, I don't have much hope it will pass. All of the members of Congress mentioned are Democrats, which does not bode well for passage of the bill, as they are not currently the majority party in either side of the legislature. They will need some help from across the aisle, and in the current political climate here in the U.S., they're not likely to find it. Here's hoping I'm as wrong can be. You can check out the links to the full stories in the show description. While you're doing that, please consider supporting the show financially through Patreon at patreon.com/Tesla Tidbits. Thanks as always to the super patrons out there supporting the show at the $10 plus level. They are John Waltower, Drew Schuyler, John Waller, Mark and Sarah Thomas, Ryan Scarborough, Lee Sweet, William Henry Crew III, Dory and Steve Guberman, Bruno Kundici, Joey Boots, Ralph and Cheryl Waterhouse, Adam Raymer Brown, Megawatt Photovoltaic Development, Todd Sullivan, Robert Healy, Mitch Long, Zortech LED Canada, Morven Ogg, Blake Thompson, and Raymond and Deborah Malkowitz. If you can't support with dollars, be sure to show your love with positive reviews and subscriptions on YouTube, iTunes, and other services across the internet. That's it for this week. If you have feedback for me, as always, the best way to be heard is to tweet at Tesla Tidbits and use the hashtag AskTeslaTidbits if you'd like your question to be considered for the show. I'll see everyone back here again next week. Until then, keep it charged and hit the road.